My name is Giselle Salah Ejapon. I aspire to become a public health epidemiologist. Through this presentation, I will share how I plan to incorporate trauma informed practices into my future work, focusing on child neglect and psychological maltreatment. Epidemiologists analyze health data to identify disease patterns and inform public health strategies. So, epidemiology usually looks at how diseases spread, but it's also super important to check out the social and emotional aspects that affect our health. And this is also very important in understanding and recognizing trauma and social determinants, which is crucial for effective prevention and intervention. So, what do we understand by child neglect and psychological maltreatment? Child neglect refers to failure to meet a child's basic physical and emotional needs. Psychological maltreatment also refers to behaviors that harm a child's emotional well being and development. Both forms can be subtle, making them challenging to identify, particularly in families with socioeconomic advantages. In my future role as an epidemiologist, I would develop trauma informed surveillance tools. My first strategy is to develop screening tools that schools and pediatric clinics can use to detect signs of emotional neglect. This course has opened my eyes to how emotional and psychological forms of abuse often go unrecognized. We can do this by monitoring patterns like frequent ER visits or behavioral changes as potential abuse indicators. We could also collaborate with schools and clinics to flag and address these patterns promptly. Traditional public health surveys focus on physical injury or substance abuse, but what about questions like, do you feel emotionally safe at home? Or is there someone who makes decisions for you without your consent? So, by using surveys to identify emotional neglect, we can help combat the idea or the neglect children might face. For the training, we can use role playing in our workshops to act out real situations that people going through neglect or psychological maltreatment might face. And we could also advocate for child welfare data by partnering with policymakers and child protection agencies to include psychological maltreatment indicators. Based on the knowledge I have gained throughout the course, I believe child neglect exists on a continuum. When we talk about child neglect, it's important to understand that it's not a simple yes or no situation. According to Dabowitz, neglect exists on a spectrum, with some children receiving excellent care and others experiencing severe neglect. This continuum makes it challenging to define exactly when intervention is necessary. As you can see by the range of neglect, we do have mild neglect, which is the occasional inattention or unmet needs of the child. Moderate neglect also reflects a persistent pattern of inattention that also negatively impacts a child. And for the final one, the severe neglect, which involves prolonged deprivation, leading to significant harm to the child's well being. So, so that is why our trauma informed surveillance tools focus on capturing those subtle signs of emotional neglect, such as a child's overall sense of emotional safety at home. By recognizing that neglect can be subtle, we can better identify children who may be at risk and provide them with the support that they need. For my second point was that privilege can mask emotional neglect. Even if parents are wealthy and provide everything their child needs materially, they can still unintentionally cause harm. Emotional neglect can be easily missed because the child's physical needs are being met. So people might not realize there's actually a problem. Also, psychological harm isn't always obvious, so it can be difficult to detect as well. It isn't always visible, which is why I will create a specialized screening tool that assess emotional well-being, not just physical safety. And also, especially, we can do this especially in higher income communities where abuse is often hidden. These tools would include questions related to emotional validation, presence of caregivers, and signs of anxiety or low self worth in children. We'd also work with school counselors and pediatricians to be able to detect during annual health checkups. And for my final point, which are the long term consequences of psychological maltreatment. So, according to Hibbard, psychological abuse is often hard to recognize because it happens gradually through repeated interactions. Now, this can seriously affect how they see themselves, how they form relationships, and even their mental health later in life. The scary part is these kinds of effects often don't show up in the usual data systems we rely on. That's why in the future, I want to push for better tracking of emotional and psychological maltreatment in both child welfare and health records, so we are not overlooking these serious issues. For example, I would try to keep notice of things like when parents continuously put their child down verbally, are emotionally distant, or use deceptive methods to try and manipulate them. And such maltreatment can impair a child's ability to interact socially, leading to isolation, poor peer relationships, like I said initially. All right. So, in conclusion, recognizing neglect as a continuum enhances our ability to identify and address it effectively. Early intervention can always prevent escalation and promote child well being. And ongoing education and collaboration are also key to fighting child neglect. So let's keep learning and working together to help them out. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.